In business, International Monetary Fund cuts 2026 global growth forecast amidst Middle East conflict. On the foreign scene, Trump threatens fresh Iran strikes after declaring ceasefire over. And in sport, Egypt demands FIFA probe controversial World Cup officiating. Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Prime on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital. I am Mukhtar Kasim. A quick reminder, Global Television is on DSTV channel 365, Star Times channel 276 and Free TV. And now the news in details. President Bola Tinubu has taken another major step towards the establishment of state police with the inauguration of a presidential working group to draft the National Policing Bill. The proposed legislation is expected to provide a legal framework for implementing a dual policing system across the country following the National Assembly's passage of the Constitution Amendment State Police Bill 2026. Kikelo Mokere has details.
The journey towards state police has entered a new phase. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, represented by his Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila, inaugurated the Presidential Working Group at the Presidential Villa, Abuja, with a mandate to produce a comprehensive national policing bill. President Tinubu says, while the constitutional amendment has laid the foundation, the National Policing Bill will define how state police will operate. He says the legislation must address minimum policing standards, state readiness, federal-state collaboration, accountability, funding arrangement, and safeguarding and safeguards for the protection of human rights.
Following the directive of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, this working group on the National Policing Bill has been considered to produce a technically robust, implementation-ready draft National Policing Bill and supporting package of transmission to the National Assembly, following the passage of the Constitutional Amendment on State Police into law. Additionally, the working group will consider the constitutional, legal, political, operational, and other factors relevant to the effective implementation of state policing in Nigeria, and following therefrom, produce other relevant legislative enactments necessary for the thoughtful, responsible, and well-resourced operationalization and implementation of the dual policing structure in Nigeria.
Speaking on behalf of the Nigerian Governors Forum, Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun pledged the commitment of the governors to ensure speedy ratification of the constitutional amendment by State House of Assembly. He describes state police as a practical response to Nigeria's security challenges, noting that if each state recruits about 6,000 officers, the country could add nearly 200,000 personnel to strengthen internal security.
This bill has come at a very auspicious time in the history of this country, a time where the level of insecurity has gotten to a point and has continued to attract the attention of not just all of us in Nigeria, but those outside Nigeria. The number of personnel each state will bring to policing, you probably will almost quadruple the number of policemen that we have, boots on the ground that we have across the country. I mean, a state like Ogun State, if the whistle is blown tomorrow, we are ready with about at least 6,000 policemen. So if you time 6,000 minimum by 36 states, that gives you almost 200,000 policemen added to the number of policemen of about 300,000 that we have today.
Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fagbemi, described the initiative as timely and urged state governors to accelerate the ratification process to pave the way for implementation.
That said, we shouldn't wait. The concept note has been provided. But my supplication to the governors is that they should please help us do their utmost to ensure the early passage of this constitutional amendment when the thing gets to the state. because it's really a shared responsibility. We're all involved. Unfortunately, it's not just an amendment that the National Assembly alone can undertake. This is why it's imperative that the governors be appealed to help us speed up the process.
President of the Nigerian Bar Association, Afam Osigwe, welcomed the reform but stressed the need for strong legal safeguards to prevent abuse, guarantee accountability, and protect the rights of citizens.
To ensure that we don't create a monster by creating a state police, and we do not create a body that could be weaponized at some times. And so we're glad to be part of this working group, because I believe that with the area of people gathered here, we'll be able to dot the I's and cross the T's, identify likely problems that may defeat the idea of state police, and also ensure that we put the right statutory provisions in place to ensure that not only is this idea of state police not abused, but it's also put in place in such a way as to secure the lives and the welfare of the people, and also ensure that policing trickles down to the various communities. I'll be willing and ready to play a role to ensure that we are able to achieve the terms of reference of the working group and put in place a model legislation to govern the different aspects of the terms of reference, such that Nigerians will be proud that we have done the right thing to put in place a state police.
The committee comprises the Attorney General of the Federation, the Chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, the President of the Nigerian Bar Association, the National Security Advisor, the Inspector General of Police, and other key stakeholders. Kike Lomo Okeri, Global TV News.
And now to the National Assembly, where the Senate has resolved to await the outcome of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission (ICPC) investigation before taking further action on the controversy surrounding the Presidential Foreign Intervention Promotion Council. The decision followed concerns over the inclusion of the reportedly non-existent agency in the 2026 Appropriation Act with an allocation of 1.302 billion naira, despite presidency officials describing it as unauthorized. Lawmakers say the investigation is necessary to protect the credibility of the National Assembly and restore confidence in the budget process. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has launched an investigation into the controversial inclusion of the purported Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council in the 2026 Appropriation Framework amid concern over its legal status and implementation for the integrity of Nigeria's budget process. The motion, sponsored by Plateau lawmaker Yusuf Gagdi, followed reports that more than 1.3 billion naira was allocated to the council, despite the federal government's position that no such agency was lawfully established. National Assembly correspondent Anita Patrick reports.
Concerns over the credibility of Nigeria's budget process took center stage in the House of Representatives as Plateau lawmaker Yusuf Gagdi raised a motion of urgent public importance over the inclusion of the Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council (PFIPC) in the 2026 budget. According to the lawmaker, government records shows that no law establishing the council exists. Yet reports indicate that over 1.3 billion naira was allocated to the entity in the appropriation framework.
Observe that reports indicate that a budgetary provision in excess of 1.3 billion attributable to the entity found its ways into the 2026 appropriation framework, raising fundamental question which falls squarely within the constitutional remit of this House of how a body without any authentic instrument of establishment could enter a federal budget whether through the executive proposal or in the course of legislative consideration, and at what point the existing scrutiny safeguards failed to dictate this particular insertion.
Supporting the motion, lawmakers described the development as a direct challenge to the credibility of the legislature and the nation's public finance management system. Deputy Speaker Benjamin Kalu recounted how the purported council had previously approached his office with official-looking documents and a government address, underscoring the need for a comprehensive investigation to uncover those behind the alleged deception.
Quite embarrassing that people who have the kind of boldness they exhibited, moving around with what is not in existence, carrying themselves as if they are a legal entity. Mr. Speaker, I was a victim. It goes to show that an address that shows Federal Secretariat does not mean that that particular agency is legal. It means that we have to do our job as proposed by that motion. They need to investigate deeper about how they got to where they got to with regards to our budget, how they got to where they got to with regards to the engagement they have with various government officials.
From overwhelming support, take two. Following overwhelming support, the House resolved to constitute an ad hoc committee to trace how the budget provision was introduced, invite the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning alongside the Director General of the Budget Office to explain the verification process for agencies proposed for funding and verify the legal status of all entities captured in the 2025 and 2026 Appropriation Acts. The lawmakers also directed the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation not to release any funds to the purported council pending the outcome of the investigation. From the National Assembly, Aniete Patrick, Global TV News.
Meanwhile, a rowdy session erupted in the House of Representatives as lawmakers clashed over the suspension of payments for constituency and zonal intervention projects, with members demanding the immediate implementation of the 2026 Appropriation Act and the release of funds for critical government projects. The heated debate followed a motion sponsored by Alex Ekweche, who condemned the slow release and poor cash backing of appropriated funds, warning that delays were crippling infrastructure, security, healthcare, and other key sectors while leaving contractors unpaid despite completed projects. Again, National Assembly correspondent Aniete Patrick reports.
The legislative activities of the House of Representatives turned rowdy as aggrieved parliamentarians protested against the suspension of the Zonal Intervention Fund and constituency projects in the Appropriation Act. The motion received overwhelming bipartisan support but sparked shouting matches on the floor as some lawmakers opposed aspects of the debate, particularly calls to invite President Bola Tinubu to personally explain the delay in budget implementation. Speaker of the House, Tajuddin Abbas, ruled that such a proposal was unparliamentary and could not form part of the House resolution.
Concerned that notwithstanding the clear directive of Mr. President, the legislative approvals and the ministerial assurances releases to MDAs remain slow, if I may say non-existent, stalling critical projects, escalating contract costs, exposing contractors to insolvency, and rising non-performing loans.
Whatever you give the leadership or the presiding officer as your motion, you should not derail by one word. You should read verbatim what you have given. What we saw today is a complete direction of our tradition and practice. What Honorable Masco read was a complete deviation from the motion that he gave me.
Lawmakers, however, unanimously resolved to urge the Federal Ministry of Finance, the Budget Office, the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, and the Central Bank of Nigeria to accelerate the release and cash backing of appropriated funds, complete the verification and settlement of outstanding contractor liabilities, and review a recent Treasury circular suspending payments for constituency projects.
That I want to urge this House to agree
that we summon Mr. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria together with his financial team to please come to this house in line with the provision of the Constitution to brief Nigerians exactly what is happening, because the stories are not complimentary at all.
The House also constituted an ad hoc committee to engage fiscal authorities and report within 4 weeks on the implementation of the budget, settlement of contractor debts, and utilization of approved borrowings as lawmakers pledged closer oversight to safeguard the integrity of Nigeria's appropriation process. From the National Assembly, Anieti Patrick, Global TV News.
Away from the National Assembly, the federal government is stepping up efforts to safeguard Nigerians' personal data and strengthen the country's digital identity system through closer collaboration among key government agencies. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, made this known while receiving the Director General of the National Identity Management Commission, Abisoye Koka Odusoye, during a courtesy visit in Abuja. Sadia Yakubu reports.
Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, says protecting citizens' personal data remains central to building a secure and trusted digital economy. He commended the National Identity Management Commission for expanding Nigeria's national identity database. He stressed the need for stronger interagency collaboration to enhance data protection, strengthen identity management, and boost public confidence in digital services. The minister also called for intensified enrollment across rural and underserved communities, while sustaining registration efforts for Nigerians in the diaspora to achieve universal identity coverage. Track of Mohammed Idris.
I see, I'm hearing that there are about 150 locations in diaspora as well. So if you complement that with what we have on ground, I think you're going to have a more comprehensive, robust system of identity management that, is so delighted to hear that it's about the 4th largest in the world. With the way we are going, a country of nearly 240 million, we cannot afford to play with identity management, especially the issue of identity theft, identity fraud that you talked about is so central to planning. If you don't know the number of people that you have and the demography and what they represent, how do you plan for them? So this is at the heart of even the reform agenda of Mr. President.
Director General of the National Identity Management Commission, Abisoye Koka Odusoye, said the commission is working with the Ministry of Justice and security agencies to crack down on identity theft and other identity-related crimes through investigation and prosecution. She reaffirmed NIMC's commitment to strengthening data security and protecting the personal information of Nigerians through improved technology and strategic partnership.
So we have our own eyes in identity, and we are making sure that we get to the bottom of this, because Nigeria is a wonderful country, but like any other global crisis, we are plagued with all sorts of criminal issues. So we are working with the Cybercrime Center and the Counterterrorism Center under the Office of the National Security Advisor.
Both agencies have pledged closer collaboration to strengthen Nigeria's digital identity ecosystem, improve service delivery, and reinforce public confidence in the security of citizens' personal data as the nation accelerates its digital transformation. Satya Yakubu, Global TV News.
You are watching the live broadcast of News Prime. News Prime continues after this weather forecast plus business, foreign and sports stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us.
Hello and welcome. Keep your umbrellas closed as wet weather is set to continue across much of the southwest, including Lagos, over the next 24 hours. Coastal communities in Cross River and Akwa Ibom should prepare for prolonged torrential rainfall through most of Thursday, increasing the risk of flash flooding. So if you live in low-lying or flood-prone areas, it's important to remain vigilant and take all necessary precautions. Rainfall totals over the past 24 hours have been remarkable, with Ado Ekiti recording as much as 100 millimeters and Bauchi receiving 95 millimeters of rainfall. Elsewhere, morning thunderstorms and rains are expected across much of Taraba, Adamawa, Gombe, Bauchi, and Kaduna. These storms will gradually extend southwards to affect the Federal Capital Territory, Nasarawa, Plateau, and parts of Kaduna later in the day. By late afternoon and into evening, thunderstorms will become more active across much of the north and central Nigeria, with some areas likely to experience intense downpours and gusty winds. And that's your weather update. Stay informed, stay safe, and thank you for watching.
Welcome back from that break. And now to business. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, has lowered its 2026 global growth forecast to 3%, citing the economic impact of the Middle East conflict, despite continued momentum in artificial intelligence-driven investment. The fund also raised its global inflation projection to 4.7%, warning that higher energy prices and prolonged geopolitical tension continue to weigh on the global economy. While the IMF expects growth to recover in 2027, it says the pace of recovery will depend largely on improved stability in global trade and energy markets. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has called on the African Export-Import Bank to deepen its support for Africa's industrialization by mobilizing investment that will drive value addition, expand trade, create jobs, and accelerate growth across the continent. He made the call while receiving a delegation led by President and Chairman of the Board of Afrexim Bank, Dr. George Elombi, at the State House in Abuja. Samuel Odi reports.
Receiving the President and the Chairman of the Board of Afrexim Bank, Dr. George Elombi, and his delegation at the State House, Abuja, President Bola Tinubu says Africa must move beyond rhetoric to decisive action by harnessing its vast human, financial, and natural resource for sustainable development. The President said his administration's economic reforms include the removal of fuel subsidy and the unification of foreign exchange markets are laying the foundation for more transparent, competitive, and resilient economy. He urged the Afrexim Bank to support investment in solid minerals, manufacturing, and battery production to ensure Africa adds value to abundant natural resources instead of exploiting raw materials.
So that short time must be used to be there resilient, not looking back in the past regrets, but forward to build a nation that is resilient and play truly a heart of African role.
President Tinubu also called for stronger collaboration between Afrexim Bank and the Bank of Agriculture to boost investment in cocoa, palm oil, and other agricultural value chains capable of creating jobs and increasing export earnings. The Minister of State for Industry, John Enoch, says the administration's economic diversification drive is repositioning Nigeria for sustainable growth through investment in solid minerals, agriculture, manufacturing, oil and gas, and digital economy and value-added exports.
Just to let you know that your industrialization agenda, is just, falls in line with what the president's focus is in terms of industrialization. I mean, we think and we know that the greatest economies of the world, have become industrialized because they're able to transit from agricultural productivity, to industrialization.
In his remarks, Afrexim Bank President Dr. George Elombi reaffirmed the bank's commitment to Nigeria's economic transformation, revealing that it has invested between $15 to $20 billion in the country over the period of 5 years. He disclosed that Afrexim Bank is financing strategic projects include the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, the Kano-Maradi Railway, and has committed $2 billion to reviving Nigeria's cotton and garment industry.
For free. So now for all this expansion for doctors' residencies, for also clinical areas where doctors do the consultation, we need additional space. The 6 hectares that was given to us is now fully occupied.
The meeting underscored the growing partnership between Nigeria and the Afrimex Bank, with both sides reaffirming their commitment to accelerating industrialization, strengthening regional trade, and positioning Africa for sustainable economic prosperity. Samuel Odi, Global TV News.
Still talking business, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL) has signed 6 major gas agreements with industry partners to boost industrialization, expand domestic gas supply, and strengthen Nigeria's security in energy. The agreements were signed on the sidelines of the 25th Energy Week in Abuja. And now to news making rounds on the foreign scene. United States President Donald Trump has threatened fresh military strike against Iran, saying he is prepared to hit the country hard again tonight after declaring the ceasefire effectively over. His comments came after renewed exchange of attacks between the United States and Iran, including American strikes on military targets and Iranian attacks on commercial shipping and regional military facilities. The latest developments have further raised fears of wider regional conflict and renewed instability in global energy markets. Opposition leader in the UK, Nigel Farage, has resigned as Member of Parliament for Clacton, forcing a by-election he says will personally contest. The Reform UK leader made the announcement amidst mounting scrutiny over undeclared financial support, insisting he's done no wrong. And now to sport. The Egyptian Football Federation has asked FIFA to investigate the officiating team that handled the Pharaohs' 3-2 round of 16 defeat to Argentina at the FIFA World Cup. Egypt alleges serious refereeing errors, including the disallowance of a goal after VAR intervention and the failure to review incidents it believes warranted a penalty, describing the decision as discriminatory. The federation has also called for the referee and the entire officiating crew to be removed from the tournament pending the outcome of the investigation. As Global TV News Prime comes to an end, here is a recap of our top stories. The Senate has resolved to await the outcome of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission investigation before taking further action on the controversy surrounding the Presidential Foreign Intervention Promotion Council. In business, the International Monetary Fund has lowered its 2026 global growth forecast to 3%, citing the economic impact of the Middle East conflict despite continued momentum in artificial intelligence-driven investment. On the foreign scene, you heard that United States President Donald Trump has threatened fresh military strikes against Iran, saying he's prepared to hit the country hard again after declaring ceasefire effectively over. And in sport, the Egyptian Football Federation has asked FIFA to investigate the officiating team that handled the Pharaohs' 3-2 round of 16 defeat to Argentina at the FIFA World Cup. And that's it on News Prime. Here is a quick reminder. Global Television is on DSTV channel 365, Star Times channel 276, and Free TV. Kindly follow us across all our social media platforms now displaying on your screen using at Global TV NG. I am Mukhtar Kasim. Saying a very big thank you for watching.